Let's take another look at lessons 4 through 7 of our expressions unit, starting off with GCF, greatest common factor. So we are trying to figure out what is the greatest number that multiplies into both of these. That's a factor of both of these. So first, we need to look at our numerical values. We've got 32 and 96. Maybe you know their greatest common factor off the top of your head. A little bit harder with these bigger numbers. You can also use prime factorization. I can split 32 into, let's do 4 and 8. Both of those are not prime, so I can split it further. 4 splits into 2 and 2. 8 splits into 2 and 4. And then 4 splits into 2 and 2. So the prime factorization here is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So I'm going to write that out for 32. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. We can also do the prime factorization for 96. Let's say I split this up into, let's do 2 and 48. 48 is a little bit easier than to split into, let's do 6 and 8. 6 splits into 2 and 3. 8 splits into 2 and 4. 4 splits into 2 and 2. So the prime factorization here is 2 times 2 times 3 times 2 times 2 times 2. I'm going to put them in order from least to greatest. So we've got 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Then we're looking at their variables. So you might be able to do it without listing it all out, but it could be helpful to list them. So if we've got X, if we have X, I'm going to highlight this, to the 4th, that means we have 4 X's. So X times X times X times X. And then if we have Y to the 5th, that means we have 5 Y's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do the same thing for the 96x squared y to the 7th. So our x squared, x to the 2nd power, means we have 2 x's. So x times x, and our y to the 7th means we have 7 y's. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now when we're finding the GCF, we're saying what is the largest number they both have in common. So first, looking at our numerical values, they share a 2, they share a second 2, they share a third 2, they share a fourth 2, and they share a fifth 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32 is the numerical value they share. Then they share 1x and another x, a total of 2 x's, so x squared. And then for y, they share 1y, 2 y's, 3 y's, 4 y's, 5 y's. So y to the 5th. And that is our GCF. Let's look at another one, and maybe we don't break it down as much. The other thing I want you to note is when we're looking here for 4 and 2, let's highlight that instead. With the 4 and the 2, the highest they could share was the 2, because 2 is the GCF of 4 and 2. 5 and 7, there's 5 y's and there's 7 y's. The highest that you can take is that lowest number, that 5. Let's do another one. So 12 and 40, let's this time maybe do it without the prime factorization. So I can think of factors of 12. Maybe I just list those out. Factors of 12 are 1, divides by 2, divides by 3, divides by 4, divides by 6, and divides by 12. And then I can ask myself, what is the highest number that they both divide by? So 40 divides by 1, 40 divides by 2, 40 does not divide by 3, 40 divides by 4, it does not divide by 6, it does not divide by 12. So 4 should be the GCF, but I can double check. Because if I divide 12 by 4, that's 3. If I divide 40 by 4, that's 10. Since 3 and 10 don't have any other common factors, that tells me that I simplified it the most. So the numerical value of their GCF is 4. Now looking at the individual variables. So if I've got A, so 1A, and I've got 4 A's, the most amount that they could share is just A. You have to take the lowest value. For B, I have 4 B's and 9 B's. So the most that they have in common is 4. We have to take whatever the lower one is. And then for C, we have C to the 6th and we have C to the 8th. So the lowest amount that they both share there is the 6, because what's that? I'm going to rewrite. This one only has 6, so it can't have 8. So your GCF is 4A, B to the 4th, C to the 6th. Let's look at simplifying. So this is kind of 2 lessons. First lesson is just looking at the distributive property and then applying it all together. What is most important to note is that when we are simplifying, we need to make sure we're looking at the negatives very carefully. So here, the number I'm distributing is -6. I'm distributing it to a positive 7x and a negative 10x. So we're doing -6 times positive 7x is negative 42x. And we're doing -6 times negative 10, which is positive 60. This is our final answer. They can't be combined because they are not like terms. Let's look at number 4. First thing that we have to do here is we have to distribute before we can do anything else. When I am distributing, again, I'm being careful. I'm not distributing a positive 7. I'm distributing a negative 7. I'm first distributing the negative 7 to positive 4y, which would be negative 28y, because a negative times a positive is a negative. Then I'd be distributing the negative 7 to a negative 3. Negative 7 times negative 3 is positive 21. And then bring down the 15y. That was step 1. Don't skip that step. Now we go into combining our like terms. So I've got 15y and I've got negative 28y that are like terms and can be combined. They're opposites, so I'm going to find the difference, which is 13y. There were more negatives, so it is negative. And then I bring down the plus 21 that can't be combined with anything. So our final simplified answer is negative 13y plus 21. This one has 2 parentheses in it, so we're going to do them both simultaneously. So over here, I am distributing my 7 to both. And over here, I am distributing my positive 8 to both. So let's look at the 7 first. We are doing positive 7 times positive 2x, which is 14x. Then we are doing positive 7 to positive 5, which is positive 35. Now we're going to distribute the second parentheses. And again, we are distributing a positive 8 to a positive 4x, which is positive 32x. Then we are distributing that same positive 8 to a negative 11, which is negative 88. Now that we've done our step 1, we move on to step 2, which is simplifying. Let's combine those like terms. I've got 14x and positive 32x, which can be combined to make 46x. And then we also have constants that we can combine. We've got positive 35 and negative 88. They are opposites. We're going to find the difference between 88 and 35, which is 53. And there were more negatives, so it is going to be negative 53, or the proper way to write that would just be 4x minus 53. Let's do one more simplifying like this before we look into combining the expressions. So, same idea as number 5. The difference is there's a lot of negatives in here, and we got to be really careful with that. So we are first distributing in this parenthesis, then we are distributing in this second set of parentheses and making sure you are pointing out that that 6 is negative. So we are doing 4 times 11x, which is positive 44x. Then we are doing 4 times a negative 10, which is negative 40. For our second set of parentheses, most important part here, we are distributing a negative 6. Negative 6 times positive 8 is negative 48x. And a negative 6 times positive 1 is negative 6. Now I can combine my like terms. We've got positive 44x and negative 48x. They're opposites. We find the difference, which is 4. There were more negatives, so negative 4x. And then combining our constants, we have negative 40 and negative 6. They are the same. We find the sum, which is 46, and we were adding negatives, so negative 46. So negative 4x minus 46. Last thing we're going to look at is simplifying or combining linear expressions. So if you look closely, the difference between 5 and 6, in 5, there were numbers outside the parentheses that need to be distributed. For 7, sorry, I said 5 and 6, what is 5 and 7? For 7, there's not. So really, we are just adding these two expressions. What we really are kind of distributing here is this operation. We need to make sure we are adding the terms from each. So I'm going to rewrite. I am adding my x's together, and I am adding my constants together, okay? So in one parentheses, I'm going to write my x's. We've got negative 8x plus our other x value of 5x. And then we are also adding 17 plus our other constant of negative 25. So we're going to simplify. Negative 8x plus positive 5x is negative 3x. And our constants, we have positive 17 and negative 25 makes negative 8. Let's try that one more time, but with subtraction. And this is where we see people making mistakes. So again, there's no numbers outside the parentheses, so we are just combining these terms. And I'm being careful to note that we are subtracting both. So I am first doing negative 9x minus negative 5x. I'm going to write that in parentheses. Negative 9x minus a negative 5x. We are also doing this with our constants. So I have negative 25 minus a negative 18. So negative 25 minus negative 18. Let's combine these. Whenever we have minus a negative, that really means plus a positive. So we've got negative 9x and positive 5x. The difference is 4x, and there were more negatives, so it's negative. We've already applied this subtraction sign when we distributed it to both. So I don't need to worry about that anymore. I'm just going to worry about whatever this sign is. We have a minus a negative again, which is plus a positive. So we have negative 25 plus positive 18 is going to be negative 7. So that is our final answer.